Good evening, everyone. We're going to wait till a few more people enter the webinar before we get started. Thanks so much for coming. All right, why don't we go ahead and get started? Good evening, everyone. My name is Kelly Wilson. I'm Executive Director for Master's Admissions at the Tepper School, and I am excited to be here with you this evening, as well as with a group of our current students who are going to talk to you this evening about their experience at the Tepper School in leadership roles with some of our professional clubs. The evening Tepper Talks is a series of events. 2 evenings we'll be hearing from club leaders, and so this is our second night of that activity. And then on October 13th, we'll hear from the Master's Career Center, and on October 21st from Accelerate Leadership Center. And so these groups together, both from the staff side and the student side, work together and helping to make sure that our students are prepped for their career search, both internships as well as post MBA. And so I'm excited for what I know you'll learn this evening. And I want to take a second just to show you the different clubs that will be speaking tonight. We've got Marketing Club, Media and Entertainment, Business and Technology, Operations and General Management, and Energy and Clean Tech. Please hold your, don't hold your questions until the end. Please go ahead and type in the question and answer box, any question that you might have as we go along. We will go through the presentations, and then once the students are done, we'll go through some of the questions, and we'll be able to share some additional information with you at that time. Again, we're super excited to kick off this evening. Let me first introduce Corey Weeks. Corey will be the first panelist, and then we'll go through, you'll hear from each of these students that you see on the screen. So at this point, Corey, I'm gonna hand off the floor to you.
Thank you, Kelly. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Corey Weeks. I'm Vice President of the Marketing Club here at Tepper School of Business. Just wanted to talk a little bit today about what the Marketing Club is and the different functions we do within it and what it's setting up our members to be successful in the future for. So as you see here, the mission of Marketing Club is to kind of help students see themselves in marketing careers, kind of understand what it takes to get there, what are the skill sets you can build on to become a future marketing leader, and then just helping people build those building blocks to ultimately get a career in marketing and be successful in it. And so we have a lot of great events for professional events, educational events, social events. So where a lot of like-minded people can get together, talk about marketing concepts, learn about how to secure jobs in marketing. What do those jobs in marketing look like? And I think there's some misconceptions on what marketing is. A lot of people think it's just advertising, but there's so much more to it. Pricing, product placement, promotion, it's the whole package. And so it's just a really great club to kind of get a whole sense of the whole marketing field. And so we have alumni who've gone to companies like Amazon, Google, HP, Microsoft, tech companies, right? Tech companies need marketers and to develop their products, to develop their roadmap and their vision to go forward, as well as some more traditional companies like CPG, consumer product goods and packaged goods, as well as some gaming companies. So we've got a wide variety of different placements where our alumni ultimately end up going. And it's just a really great organization. I'm happy to be here today to talk a little bit more about it. So I believe, Kelly, if there's nothing else I'm missing, I believe Chris is up next with Media Entertainment Club.
Thanks, Corey. I have a little quote up here from the company who spent an internship over the summer. I'd rather entertain and hope that people learn something than educate people and hope they were entertained. And in the Media and Entertainment Club, what we're really trying to do is strike that balance in terms of preparing our club members for jobs afterwards in a very tough industry to break into, as well as making the experience overall enjoyable. Media and entertainment as an industry is kind of unique from the other industries you will see here and talk about today, not just in terms of the content and what type of companies are involved, but also in terms of the timeline. Something really important to understand as part of recruiting for this is that recruiting doesn't really get started and applications don't even go up until January. And that cycle can go all the way till the end of April. That's really when I was able to get my internship offer, was actually the last week in April. So it's a lot of work, it's a lot of networking, it's a lot of coffee chats that we go through. And what we do in the Media and Entertainment Club is try to prepare our club members for that and getting them ready for it. And the way we do that is in a number of different areas. But first and foremost, I'd say what we do in MEC is we do a really good job of getting our alumni and industry contacts all together within our own sort of contact book. And what that really does is give our members opportunities, at least willing to get started, to go out there and get some practice in talking to people who already work in the industry so they can learn a little bit more and build up those connections that need to be there. We are also working on coffee chat workshops to try to bring people together and go through both the science of what's involved and sort of the extra art and making it a memorable experience, not just for themselves, but also for the other person that they're talking to try and really forge the quality of connection and not just the number of connections that are out there. We do this for a variety of different areas. As you can see, we're focused in the film and television area, gaming, sports, as well as music and social media. Traditionally, the most growth we were seeing pre-pandemic in this area was in gaming. And I would say recently with the streaming wars that have been occurring, there's been an uptick and a competition for technology talent as a lot of legacy media firms have now suddenly learned that they are in the technology business, whether they like it or not. This really opens up a whole bunch of new opportunities within the Tepper program and really builds into the strength of our brand as building that bridge between business and technology. So we're able to sell it well. I don't see any questions here as far as what we're able to do or anything else related to that. So at this point, I'll hand it off to Chip to talk about BNT.
I think I might be the last slide here. You keep going past energy. There we go for Business and Technology Club. So thank you, Chris, for that introduction. So Business and Technology Club, our main goal is to help people find roles within the technology industry, and the technology industry encompasses all of the usual suspects between Facebook, Apple, Google, and the rest of them, but also it's really much broader than that. So for example, I interned at Progressive Insurance this summer. And if you think about it, insurance is entirely a data problem, and they're selling a technology product to their customers. And so really the expanse of technology companies is so much broader than it used to be, and there's so many opportunities within this industry. Some of our main functions as a club are to help people with interview preparation and skills workshops to really prepare them for the interview process and success within their internships, as well as beyond Tepper. And really what I always remind people is that you don't have to have a background in technology. You don't have to be a software engineer to get roles in any of these companies. Really, people are looking for smart, articulate people who can lead teams, who can step up, who are organized, who can resolve conflicts. And all of those skills you learn here at Tepper and the Business and Technology Club can help you, tweak a few of those hard skills and kind of, work on the behavioral casing workshops that we do. So really our job is to help you get there, and we do it very well. For corporate speakers, we like bringing in people from the industry, so we get speakers in from the usual suspects, but we also rely on a lot of our own networks to bring in people that we know. So I'm bringing in a really interesting venture capital firm to talk about investing in the SaaS space, in the software as a service industry. So kind of an interesting new angle on technology. We're also bringing in people to talk about a real estate startup that you wouldn't think of real estate as a technology company, but they built a digital platform to enable the real estate transactions. So it's really this, really all-encompassing corporate speakers who speak to a lot of different facets of the technology industry. We do host a case competition every year. So in business school, everybody loves case competitions where you and 4 to 5 other students will spend a couple of days working on a prompt or question or working towards a solution for a specific problem, and you'll get the chance to get a lot of feedback on it. You get the chance to present, you get to compete and network with other students at other business schools, and they're wonderful opportunities. So we host the Tech Innovation Challenge, and it's coming up in a few weeks. Next week, we also have a fall trek with companies. So in pre-COVID times, we would have a physical trek. We would go to Silicon Valley and to Seattle to be on site with a number of different companies, and we would network and we'd hear from their senior executives. And it's this really wonderful time that right now we've tried to mimic as much as possible in a virtual environment. And it's gone very smoothly last year. So we're really excited for next week to talk to all these different companies to come in. So, Cisco's coming in, Google, we have Peloton coming in to talk to us about their technology strategy. So it's really great opportunities. We also have a mentorship program. So speaking to people who want to break into the tech industry, who are career switchers, who just want a little bit more, extra guidance and advice throughout their whole recruiting process and technology. We pair second years and first years together to offer advice on a regular basis. We have office hours every week. We're always available for plenty of our students, whatever they may need. We bring in wonderful speakers like Lewis Lin, who is the author in product management, kind of an important role in the tech industry. But he's written a number of really best-selling hit books that have become the absolute gold standard in technology, and we brought him in for a workshop 2 weeks ago. We're also bringing in the author of Inspired, which is how to build products that people love. We're going to have him speak in a few weeks, and really we try to build this wonderful programming system where people can get all the skills they need to break into the technology industry and really hone their skills to really get a job at any one of these companies. And with that, I will pass it over to Michael.
Great. Hello, everyone. My name is Michael. I'm the president of Operations and General Management, or OGM. We're a professional club. We focus on students who are pursuing roles in anything between operations, logistics, supply chain management, any general management, which includes leadership development programs or LDPs, and even everything between operations consulting as well. We have kind of 3 different silos in terms of events that we kind of put on, just starting with the first one in terms of the professional side. Our club, we have a lot of relationships with different companies, and we kind of work with MCC in getting those companies in and getting a little bit more face time with those recruiters and those alumni, similar to kind of what Chit mentioned on the B&T side. We have a Corporate Friday series. And then we also have a fall trek series in terms of getting companies, some of those being like Amazon Pathways. We have Target Arrows, which has a operation-based LDP, Philips, Apple, Thermo Fisher. So some of these other companies that have focuses in terms of LDPs as well as operation type roles. Some of the other things in terms of the professional side, we also have a case competition, ICC or International Case Competition. We do an internal round at Tepper, and then we have an external round, which is for teams from all over the world. So it's always great to see different groups, everywhere from India, all to Europe and the States as well. The second silo in terms of the events we have educational type based events. We have things where we talk about, what is operations? What does that look like? What does operations consulting look like? What does supply chain look like? We have a lunch and learn series where we invite professors or different type of subject matter experts to come in and talk to us about, what are some of the exciting things that are happening in the operations space now in real time to kind of get it a little bit more of like, not just the recruiting side of things. Wrapping up kind of like the more professional side of things, we also do a mentorship program. We have a matching between our second years to our first years, even to alumni to first years, just again, to get that like help in terms of recruiting, or maybe that's even personal life of, starting at Tepper and moving to Pittsburgh and just making sure that our students have the resource they need in order to succeed. Lastly, we do have social events and some community building events type things. Some of the things that we have done in the past, a little bit more recently, we went to the Carry Furnace, Rivers of Steel, Pittsburgh is very well known for being a historical steel manufacturing site. And so we toured some of those sites on this tour, talking about, how did operations look like in terms of the steel industry and how it has evolved over the years. Other things that we've done, we've gone axe throwing, we've gone go-karting. So we always try to do a little bit of fun things in addition to the professional side of things. And with that, I will pass it over to Eric for ECTC.
Hey, thanks, Michael. Actually kind of glad that I'm going last here because, everyone who's on this call might recognize a lot of these different companies. Probably about half of them I actually just blatantly stole from the other panelists on tonight. So I am the president of the Energy and Clean Tech Club. So just our real overview of our mission. We connect MBA students, industry professionals, and the entire CMU energy ecosystem to help foster interdisciplinary collaboration. We also provide our members the resources to learn, network, and succeed in the energy and clean tech world. So let's throw our website there in the chat real quick. And what that really means that we do is, one, we're a professional club like the other 4 clubs on here. The other thing we do, though, is we are also an educational club. We're looking to teach people about the energy industry to help prepare people to handle energy problems that occur kind of all over in a bunch of different types of industries. You see this giant graph I have here on the left that's a little bit incomprehensible, but this just shows where energy comes from in the US economy, what happens to it, and where it goes across residential, commercial, industrial, and transportation sectors, right? So that touches literally every single industry that we're going to see on here. And pretty much every company is going to have an energy line item somewhere on one of their financial statements, right? Either it's an operating asset that they own or that's an expense that they need to manage, either through energy efficiency or through power purchase agreements, that sort of thing. So we, do a lot of, great connections within the industry, trying to get people involved directly in energy roles. But then we also do a lot of educational programming around that, giving people sort of the fluency to be able to talk about things. Some of our recent alumni have been at pretty much, or actually have been at all of these different companies doing different energy related things, whether that's at Google or Amazon, trying to figure out how to power those data centers with renewable energy. Directly at Emerson, working on energy transformation, their business plan. I was at Oregon Power over the summer, which is a renewable energy developer. And then we have people who are at BCG doing consulting in the energy space, or at Bank of America working on, deals in, the energy and utilities group. So it's a really wide spanning club that can, you really touch pretty much everything related to, energy throughout that. So I think I am the last person. So I'll pass it back over to Kelly. Thank you.
Great, thank you. That was a fantastic overview, and I have to tell you that this is one of my favorite events that we do to moderate, because I get to hear all of the really interesting things each of your clubs are doing. And I wonder if we could just take a step back. So questions are coming in, and we'll get to your questions. Please keep typing them in if you have them. What I thought I would do is maybe ask each of you just to talk briefly about, what did you do before you came to Tepper? And then as a first year, so you're now in leadership roles in the club. As a first year, how did you engage with the clubs? And I'm assuming you engaged with the club that you're here representing, but and then how did that help support building on some of the things that you talked about, just your personal story on how did the club activities support the internship that you obtained. And so why don't we just go in the same order as we did in the presentation. So Corey, we'll start with you. If you could just talk a little bit about what you did, how you engaged with clubs, and how that played into your internship.
Yeah, definitely. Well, so before Tepper, I rewind all the way back. I started off out of graduating undergrad with an electrical engineering degree. I joined a company for 2 years, did a sort of engineering development program, kind of realized engineering wasn't exactly the direction I wanted to go. Well, I found it interesting. And so I shifted over into more of the marketing and product space, and my most for about 2 years in a engineering. It's not necessarily a tech company, but definitely a very technical and engineering manufacturing company. So I was product manager for about 2 years, kind of driving the roadmap strategy on our products, the go-to-market strategy on other things, and some of the sales strategy. And so when I came to Tepper, I was like, well, I would like to go kind of pivot to something a little bit more cool and tech. That's always the term. And so I definitely wanted to engage with a lot. My strategy was I engaged with a lot of clubs initially and try to find the right placement and which clubs really resonated with me, what type of career goals and what type of opportunities these clubs would ultimately help me go towards. And so I started off really with a really wide net and engaged with a lot of clubs. And then by the end of the first mini, I really started to hone in on the clubs I was really interested in. And so luckily, after about mini 1 and early mini 2, a lot of these clubs start offering positions on the board. It's sort of the junior board. And so there's these great positions where you can sort of get that leadership and get that behind the scenes look at what goes on to put on these great club events that do get put on so frequently. And so that was something I engaged with the clubs early on, soaked up as much knowledge as I could from the events, talked with the members of the board. And then when the junior board applications came open, I applied to those. And so I found that was really beneficial to really get engaged into these clubs. And so, like I mentioned, I'm the VP of the marketing club, but I'm also in the B&T, and I'm also in a couple other clubs. And so ultimately my internship, we can talk about that later. I went to Verizon Corporation to work in consumer marketing. So it was a really great tie-in from all these things, kind of from a tech perspective, from a marketing perspective, and tie all those things together. And so it was a really fun internship. But I guess that touches all the points. So I guess I'll hand it over to Chris next.
So most recently before Tepper, I was a director of product management at ADP, but that wasn't really the plan. I did my undergraduate degree in film, and I was in New York City, and New York City is expensive, and I couldn't get any jobs in the industry. So I ended up working in financial services, management consulting, technology for the next 10 years. At a certain point, I realized if I wasn't going to do the pivot, it was never going to happen. I needed to do it quickly. So I ended up applying for the MBA specifically because I knew I wanted to try and get to media and entertainment. So that narrowed my focus a little bit as far as what clubs I was looking for. I think Chip still has like my B&T 2-year sign up, that money from like last year, but like I haven't really been involved in B&T all that much. So, what I would say is this: a lot of you are going to have a plan when you're coming in, and that's great. And I think it's good to focus on that if you know what you're going to do. I was certainly in that case. But to Corey's point, I think it is also good if you're still undecided to go and see what's there with the different clubs. They do some similar stuff, but there are lots of things that are industry specific or career vertical specific. That's very helpful. So I do think getting that broad range of experiences helps you figure out later on what it is you really want to do, either for or against long term.
And Chip, would you mind to chime in next and talk a little bit about what you were doing before Tepper and how you engaged with clubs? And then you mentioned your internship, but anything else you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. I can give kind of the quick, tell me about yourself version in 2 minutes or less. So graduated from Williams College in 2014, small liberal arts school in Massachusetts. My major was actually in physics and Mandarin Chinese, which is sort of a fun, interesting combination that gets a lot of, odd looks from people for, why would you do that to yourself? What, those two different subjects? But I found them both very fascinating, and they were actually both very instrumental in my career path. So right after school, I actually won a scholarship from the Chinese government to study at any university of my choice in China for 1 year, all expenses paid, scholarship for room, board, and classes. So I was at Zhejiang University in Hangzhou, which is the #3 university in China, where oddly enough, I studied energy engineering because I had a passing interest in solar and wind, and China is doing a lot of really interesting innovation in that area, and there's a lot of growth. From there, I actually came back to the US, and the Mandarin actually got me my next job working for an $11 billion financial services company in New York City. I got to do a lot of big data, a lot of cool analytics, some natural language processing using the Chinese, which was really fascinating. I got some great exposure to machine learning, which is something I had never really been exposed to before, and it was really kind of fascinating seeing how that worked. I knew I wanted to pivot to a smaller company where I was less a cog in the machine. So actually, I went to a 40-person startup based in Ithaca, New York. And the premise of the startup was they wanted to use satellite imagery to build economic intelligence that they would then sell to the major oil producers, commodity trading houses, and the larger banks around the world. So you can think of it like echolocation from space, where you can actually build an image from satellite data. You can see beneath cloud cover, you can see under hurricanes, you can see beneath tree cover, you can see ships at night docking where they shouldn't be. Really interesting technology. And in that role, I was a product manager, both ensuring customer success on our largest flagship product, which was actually monitoring oil storage around the world, because you can use this echolocation from space to see how full these oil tanks are around the world. So you can say this week in Argentina, there are this many million barrels of oil, like exactly. Really wonderful technology. My role in that was mostly trying to understand the customers better, trying to understand new places in the market we could expand into, and also manage the entire customer service pipeline along with the tech development pipeline. So it was a 40-person company. And so it's cliched that you get to wear many different hats, but it was a wonderful experience that prepared me for business school, because I got to see how small companies operate. And it really kind of made me realize that I needed to understand how the business side of the business and technology world worked. So that was sort of my inroads into the Business and Technology Club here at Tepper, where I got to bring a lot of my technical experience, but I had to understand strategy. I had to understand leadership principles and really kind of how to lead teams of people together towards a shared vision. And I was, right from the get-go, attending a lot of the different B&T events on career preparation, on tech casing, which is something that I was less familiar with, which is really just a structured interview process asking you how you would launch a new product, how would you measure the success of that launch, what would you be looking for, how would you design this new product based off of customer feedback or market research that you've conducted. And so those were 100% instrumental in helping me gain a lot of success in my internship at Progressive Insurance. And I mentioned a little bit earlier that insurance is a data problem. It is entirely predictive analytics. They don't sell physical widgets that they sell to customers, they sell trust. And that is their entire business model, that they'll take care of you if something should happen to your car, your home, is really what Progressive focuses on. So I was a product manager for them for the summer, working on an interesting project in Florida on their home insurance side. I loved the strategy of the company, and the company culture was wonderful. And so it's really kind of great to see a place where all of these skills that I had built throughout my entire career really came together. So it was really kind of a wonderful way in which the club really helped lead me to a lot of success in that role. And I think I'll pass it over to Michael next to talk about his work at PwC.
Great. Yeah. So before Tepper, I was working in the pharmaceutical industry over back in the Bay Area in California. I was doing regulatory compliance testing and consulting on that side at a contract research organization. So half my job was a little bit more on the lab bench. I was developing assays. I was doing sample analysis. The other half of my job was more on the project management side. I was dealing with a lot of our clients and managing their projects and portfolios. And I realized through my last job, I liked the latter a little bit more than being on the lab bench, which is why I kind of went and decided to go into business school. I guess specifically coming into business school, I definitely didn't have a business background. I come from a much more technical side, in the sciences and life sciences. So in terms of the clubs helping me, I definitely got really involved with OGM from the get-go. Like Corey, I was on the junior board for OGM, and I was also on quite a number of other boards as well for junior board, as well as I guess even now full-time. I'm now the VP of Career Development for Healthcare, and I'm also the VP of Admissions for Out and Allied. So definitely the clubs have kind of helped, just to see even like what is possible, definitely coming from outside of the business side, just understanding what is available in terms of roles, what are things that, people do in terms of, full-time internship and everything between. So jumping a little ahead to the summertime, I was at PwC. I was doing operations consulting in their healthcare vertical. My engagement project I was mostly focused on for the summer was a merger acquisition type project. We were doing data migration for their clinical and medical financial systems. And so a lot of my job was kind of determining what that strategy looked like, defining what the future state of each of those systems were going to be, and figuring out what's the strategy in order to migrate the relevant information from both the historical sites from each of the previous companies into what that future state was going to look like. And then I guess I will pass it over to Eric.
Hey, thanks, Michael. So pre-Tepper, like a lot of other people on here, possibly to a greater extent, I didn't have exactly a business background. I joined the Marine Corps right out of college, where I was a history major at UCLA, and worked primarily as a supply chain management officer in North Carolina with a couple trips to Norway. So that meant is at a high level, I managed about $1 million budget and about $30 million worth of military equipment, making sure that it was ready to be used for training and sort of real life deployments we had to do. What that also meant I did was a lot of process digitization, process improvement, and project management, managing multiple different training exercises that would be happening at the same time, as well as trying to streamline some things, digitize some things so we could kind of efficiently function, even if my team was in a few different countries at any given time. So coming to Tepper, really wanted to sort of pivot into the renewable energy industry, and then also kind of maintain that sort of technical focus that I'd sort of started to develop in the Marine Corps. At Tepper, I think I saw a question here about people getting involved in multiple clubs. So I got involved a lot, in addition to coursework and everything. So in addition to the Energy and Clean Tech Club, I'm also on the board of the Data Analytics Club, and also Veterans Club and Wine Club as well. So easily can get super involved in stuff, but sort of wanted to take those the data analytics focus and energy stuff into the clean tech world. As Chris kind of mentioned, like there are some industries that have pretty structured recruiting pathways, and there's some that don't. Energy is absolutely one that doesn't. I think I submitted one application before January. When you'll see people who do consulting or do investment banking, they'll be getting offers. They'll be submitting their applications in September, maybe getting offers by December. It's definitely a later timeline. What that means though is that you're going to be doing a lot of networking, a lot of learning, and trying to figure out exactly what you wanted to do. I came in really thinking I wanted to be in a more heavy finance role. Not all ended up doing this summer, and I'm really happy about it. I was at Oregon Power in there as a development associate, helping them with their development of these utility scale projects they're working on. Specifically over the summer, I worked on actually some similar work to what I did in the Marine Corps, with some process digitization, trying to build a project management platform. So sort of taking that experience and applying it to a new industry, which I thought was really interesting, and really enjoyed that as well. So I think that just about covers background and what I've done. I'll pass it back over to Kelly as we can start doing some questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So I think that the attendees now have a really good sense of the club, have a good sense of kind of where you were and how you've navigated, at least through your internship, and now as you're looking ahead for post-MBA employment. I would like to transition to some of the questions, and some of them pull us back to some topics you've talked about, and some of them might be a little bit new. But Chris, there's a question here for you from Elion, and the question is, what did you do in your internship, and what do folks who have roles within media and entertainment typically do as MBA grads? Could you just dig into that just a little bit?
So first of all, my internship, I was working within Disney Media and Entertainment Distribution. This sits on top of the digital distribution channels like Disney Plus, Hulu, ESPN Plus, as well as the traditional linear distribution like ABC, Disney Channel, I guess now FX as well. And basically I was doing system implementation work for internal products while I was there. A lot of the work was focused on rights management tools. So these would be the systems that would allow you to buy and sell media assets to other companies and be able to essentially understand what was available to be sold, when it could be sold, and any rights or restrictions that could be associated with that. So this fit in a lot with, I would say, my past experience for doing system implementation work. I had done product management before that, but fundamentally I was working in a new industry where the business teams are operating differently, where the technology products are different. So that was a really good transition and experience, being able to leverage what I had done in the past, but also get to do it in a totally new area. As far as what people do in media and entertainment, I would say the biggest, this is going to be unsurprising, but the biggest growth areas for technology work. Product management is very big right now for the media and entertainment industry. They want to hire talent and they know they're competing against other technology companies now for that talent. I would say more traditionally, certainly in the lead up to the pandemic, a lot of those roles for MBA grads were structured around finance and corporate strategy. So I would say that's still there, but certainly the growth area is technology now.
All right, thanks a lot. Oh, sorry, you were done. Okay, thank you very much. So there's another question here for Chip, and I know, Chip, you were able to type in a response to Julian, but would you mind just for the rest of the group? So the question is, do you work with automotive companies in the B&T Club, and how is the relation with that industry? I'm super interested in self-driving tech. Could you respond to that, please?
Yeah, I can speak a little bit. I think actually what's really funny is that we're bringing in Uber next week to come talk to us during our trek, a lot of different companies. So I'd love to kind of, pick their brain on, what's going on in self-driving cars. I think actually they just sold their self-driving car business to another company in the Pittsburgh area. And it's one of the things that I love about Pittsburgh for, I'm sorry, I didn't realize this question was for Eric, but I've chimed in anyway. But I would love to keep going. But Pittsburgh is sort of this hotbed for self-driving cars, and you see them actually driving around with the big apparatuses on top of their roofs. So it's really kind of a wonderful way to see technology development in action, and it's this really wonderful thing that I'd love to kind of learn more about and bringing more into BNT.
All right, great. And so just to clarify, there's a question for Chip and one for Eric, and so both on the topic of self-driving cars. So Eric, Julian is asking, or is providing the following. I'm so interested in EV and self-driving cars. I know this topic is related with ECTC and saw that you have GM in the companies that you've worked with. Do you have another company and members do you have other companies and members in that industry? So what's the crossover there?
Thank you. So there's a huge crossover. When I say like every company is an energy company, EVs or cars in general, EVs specifically are a huge one. One of the things we start talking about a lot is the electrification of transportation. So no, not just GM. I put them on there because I have a Chevy Volt, so I have a little bit of a brand loyalty right there. So their marketing department's pretty good. So we do work with a fair number of other companies. We have alumni at Ford, we have alumni at Rivian, and alumni at Tesla. Just off the top of my head. And on the energy business track side, which is a related initiative of the school, but it's not necessarily strictly related to the energy business or energy and clean tech club, but we're actually working with Honda. So I think that hits most of the major car brands right there. And I think I saw another one in here. From Austin, just hit on the same thing while we're here. We talk a lot about EVs and the automotive industry. Electric vehicle charging, I think, hits a lot of different aspects on both the, how do you do that transmission, and then also how do you make sure that power is clean. We talk a lot about cars. If you're interested in EVs, definitely we're a club for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thanks for picking up that related question as well. I would like to go to Michael next. Michael, there's a question that as follows. What is generally the background of people in OGM? What percentage of members tend to go into consulting companies versus other companies? Would you mind to give that an answer?
No, I definitely say it's pretty diverse. I think it's kind of hard to point to one specific background. With operations consulting and consulting in general, I think a lot of people pivot into the consulting side. Operations is a very common, skill that a lot of people pick up or they've done in their last job, and they bring a lot of those elements as transferable skills as they pivot into, either specific consulting or operation consulting. That being said, OGM, we host and support people going to a whole gauntlet of different things, not just specifically operations consulting side. I would say that a good number, at least half, if not more, are targeting more of like the supply chain jobs or even like the leadership development programs. I guess for people who are not familiar with what LDPs are, basically a company will have buy-in from their C-suite to develop this kind of accelerated program that people go and you either go through these different rotations, whether those be in terms of function or in terms of teams, and you kind of get on that fast track lane in terms of maybe going through this 2-year program. And then when you exit that LDP, you're kind of ready to take on a pretty senior role that you wouldn't have normally been able to be qualified for. So that's really, really common. There's a ton of LDPs, and honestly, every industry, healthcare specifically, has quite a few. It's even marketing LDPs and whatnot. So I think a lot of our students in OGM are targeting the LDP side as well.
Great, thank you, Michael. Coming back your way, Chip, another question for B&T. Do you all actively partner with the engineering school to commercialize any of their research or prototypes? The question's fairly specific. If you want to kind of step back and maybe talk about some of the activity you're involved in as well, or Tepper students are involved in cross campus in the same regard, that would be fine as well.
Yeah, I think I can start with the 30,000-foot view and kind of dive into it, where I think one of the strengths for me from a technology standpoint for Carnegie Mellon was the breadth of different classes you can take throughout the school. So just as examples, I'm currently in machine learning courses within the Department of Machine Learning. And then I'm also kind of using classes from the Human Computer Interaction Institute at Carnegie Mellon, which is all about design and building better services for people. So there's really kind of this wonderful chance to collaborate across many different related disciplines that are all very complementary at the end of the day and really kind of help round out my knowledge of business. So it's not just that I've come to Tepper to learn accounting and technology strategy and economics. I'm really getting this kind of hand-on experience designing systems. I've been working in my human computer interaction class on redesigning Venmo and like how would I do that? And I get to collaborate with people beyond just the business school students who are in that class with me. On your specific question for the engineering programs on commercializing any of their prototypes, I'm actually meeting with somebody next week to talk about better ways to collaborate between the robotics program. So another strength of Carnegie Mellon is they have this wonderful master's in robotics, which is top notch within the industry. And I'm talking with one of the leaders of their program to see how we can better collaborate in the future. So definitely by next fall, we'll have some really cool programming set up to collaborate with the robotics department on helping toss around business ideas and really collaborate from there. And there's no shortage of startup opportunities with the Schwartz Center for Entrepreneurship right in the second floor of the Tepper building that really help get a lot of these ideas and collaborations off the ground. So really it's a wonderful opportunity. And even just walking around Tepper, I think on one of the floors, there are these giant robots in some room, and I see them sometimes performing some tasks, and I don't want to go interrupt them because they look like they're doing important work. But there's definitely a lot of cross-campus collaboration on that front.
Yeah, I think that's pretty exciting when you happen upon a robot in the building. It just kind of reminds you where you are, right? On Carnegie Mellon's campus. So there are a couple of questions, just to kind of pivot a little bit. There are a couple of questions or a few people asking about how the clubs interact with, or how do part-time students, sorry, maybe that's the better way, interact with clubs. So do you have any part-timers engaged with your club? What does that look like? How has that engagement maybe evolved over the past year and a half or so. And so, Chris, you were shaking your head. And so wondering if this is one that you would be willing to speak to. And if anyone else would like to speak to it, just let me know.
Yeah, sure. I got to last year work with a part-time student to try and develop a proof of concept for a new streaming service. He had a very strong background in product development and doing a lot of coding work, which I was not so great at. And I had that product management background. So we were actually able to work together, through meeting each other on the MEC on something that was really exciting. So I'd say part-time engagement. Certainly there are lots of virtual events that are still going on because of COVID. And I think that those are probably the best ones where part-time can still engage with and get the full valuable experience. But fundamentally, if you're part of the club, you get all of the benefits of the club and to be able to participate. And I think the clubs have done a great job in making sure all of our resources and our institutional knowledge is up there on the cloud for people to share, for club members to access. So I think that's a huge benefit of how part-timers are best able to participate with the clubs.
Perfect. Eric, would you have a couple of thoughts to share with the group?
Yeah, thanks. I think Chris pretty much nailed it. But so one thing that we sort of face in the energy and clean tech club is that most people are coming from energy, outside of energy and are trying to pivot into it. So a lot of us don't have necessarily industry involvement. A lot of our part-timers do though. So actually last year right after the Texas blackouts, we actually had one of our part-time students who is on an operations team at a natural gas plant in Houston come and speak to us, virtually for one of our events. Kind of walking us through not only what exactly happened, but then sort of what the market was there and what sort of business opportunities there might be in Texas. So having those part-timers be involved is hugely beneficial for our club because a lot of them do have very valuable professional experience.
Excellent. And Michael, you have a couple of thoughts to share as well.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, on the OGM side, this is definitely, an ongoing conversation, as I think it does happen over the years, in terms of the part-time schedule, depending on how much time what they can kind of put into the clubs or get out of the events. Something on the OGM side though, I do have 2 part-timers on my full-time board, so they help in whatever capacity they can, and again, that kind of more of a leadership role. So that's definitely something that we're trying to explore more, kind of what some of the other people have mentioned, with COVID and going to remote, there definitely is kind of some benefits in terms of being remote for a lot of our club events. And I think that has opened up a lot of opportunities for part-time students that wouldn't have maybe traditionally been there, moving some of those events that to a little bit more of that evening side. It does allow a lot of the part-timers to then come and join and attend those events and attend even those corporate side events and get that face time with companies if they are re-recruiting.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So there are a couple of questions here that are related to how much time are you spending with your clubs. I suspect you have to remember you're not at the Tepper School just to be leading these organizations. You've got your studies as well, but there's a balancing act, I suspect. And I wonder if you could speak to how many hours a week do you spend in your clubs? Maybe how many clubs would you say generally people are involved in, and specifically, is there a cadence for your meeting or different meetings? Sorry, Corey, would you mind to take that one?
Yeah, I can take this. So the short answer is this can vary a lot, but I'll give you some benchmarks to kind of gauge for yourself. I would say initially, I personally joined maybe 5 or 6 clubs, maybe 3 or 4 professional ones and 2 or 3 social ones. And so that was something that worked for me initially. And then I kind of, like I said before, I've tailored that down. But really the thing about joining clubs is it's as much as you want to put in or get out. So you can, let's say you signed up for the marketing club, and there maybe only were a couple events that were interesting to you. You're like, hey, what is it like to be a product manager? What is it like to be a product marketing manager? And maybe those are the only two events all many that you were interested in. And maybe you weren't so interested in how to secure a job in a marketing career, and you want to skip on some of those events. That's your prerogative to do so. And so in that case, it's like, well, maybe that many you only attended 2 meetings. And so as a member, it's really just as much content as you want to absorb and take on with your schedule, and just attend these meetings and soak up some great knowledge. The next level is if you want to actually get involved with these clubs. You want to be on a junior board, you want to work up and become on the official board. At that point, then obviously the commitment raises a little bit. Maybe junior board commitments might be an hour or 2 a week per club. And then once you become a second year, or the handoff occurs from first years to second, or from second years to first years, and when you become an official board, I think those expectations and those requirements may raise a little bit more. Maybe it's like 2 or 3 hours a week on various clubs. And then say if you were the president of a club, it might be even more. So, but it's really just as much as you want to put in these clubs as a member, it's as much as you want to get out, and on the board, it's as much as you want to put in, but it's really up to you. But there's no, at least as a member, as far as membership goes, there's no actual expectation that you have to attend every single event. Although we would encourage you to do so, and you would certainly get a lot out of it. It's as much time as you want to put in or get out of these clubs. And I think that's what's so really cool about it. You can really create your own custom path for what works for you.
Excellent, thank you. Chip, would you mind to speak to the same thing? And if you have a different perspective, or maybe if you have a similar perspective, that's great. Maybe you could talk a little bit about just kind of how you balance club activities versus schoolwork. And so that may be a helpful perspective as well.
Yeah, definitely. I'll echo Corey's points on, how much or how little you be involved in the clubs is really choose your own adventure. So it's, as much or as little as you want to put into it, you do get a lot of value out of it. And so our responsibility as club leaders is to make sure that if you attend one event a week or less than that, you're still getting a lot of value out of the experience. So we do a lot of work trying to make sure that, if you want to attend, B&T often has about 2 events a week, about an hour long. We have office hours available if you want it. Not everyone's going to attend every event, just, for their own interest, their own time prioritization. But the advice that I give to all of our first year students when they, arrived, this year is that an MBA is a degree in business, but it's also a degree in time management and prioritization. So it's really understanding what is important to you, where do you want to spend your time, what is a valuable use of your time and what isn't. And so for me, I really wanted to understand, for myself, what was important to me. And I really wanted to understand and prioritize working with people and building my own leadership skills. And so that's kind of where I focused on the club side of things, where I wanted to join B&T as the president, and then really put my effort into getting that value out of my MBA career. So really, I think the balance is going to be, struck differently for everybody for how you want to balance schoolwork and club activities and your social engagements. And I would say get your schoolwork done. Absolutely, it's important. It's, why you're coming to a university to learn all of these great skills. But I would say don't miss out on some of the club events, and really kind of that balance will shift a little bit week to week, depending on, what's going on in your classes and what's going on for some of the clubs. So I don't know if I have a specific set in stone answer on how to balance all of that time, but I think all of us can, speak to all of the help from the second years when we were first years in balancing all of our priorities and managing our time.
Excellent, thank you. One of the things that we'll come back to as a point that you're making is really the engagement between first years and second years. But before we go there, I'd like to pivot over to Eric. There are a few questions here for ECTC, and I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the opportunities the club has for delving into the future of energy and forecast where the industry is going, is one question. And another is regarding what percentage of ECTC is pursuing opportunities in oil and gas versus clean energy. Once we maybe hit those, there's another question that you can slide into as well, if you don't mind.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Kelly. So in terms of, the energy, transition towards, from a fossil fuel based system to, renewable and clean energy, that's probably the focus of like, it at least gets talked about in probably every single one of our events, or pretty much all the programming we do. Even, like a lot of the purely professional stuff, we'll be talking about, hey, what areas are going to see significant growth in future years? What areas might not? What areas right now might not be huge in terms of commercial stuff, but there might be some startups coming along soon that will be huge there. And that's something that's really cool about Carnegie Mellon, is that we're very heavily involved in the CMU Scott Institute for Electric Innovation that hosts this, Carnegie Mellon Energy Week every year. The Department of Energy is currently putting on a national case competition. The finals for that are going to be at CMU during that Energy Week. So we're super involved in that. There's some classes that are you're going to touch on that as well, which means that a lot of those professors are people that we end up spending time with, and they're also super involved in the club. So yeah, future of energy transition, probably like the biggest thing we talk about. Especially even on the policy side. I also have a minor from undergrad in public policy and a master's degree in energy policy as well. So yeah, it's something that we love to talk about and love getting involved in. In terms of percentage pursuing opportunities in oil and gas versus clean energy, it is very right now skewed clean energy. I think probably all but one person I know will either be going into a clean energy type company or a role at a more traditional energy company focused on clean energy transition. We send a fair number of people to National Grid for their leadership development program. They own a lot of fossil thermal assets, but they're really looking at modernizing, cleaning up their generation. And that's where a lot of their MBAs in the leadership development program are going to go. That being said, we do have a pretty strong footprint with Exxon, and there are people there in their corporate finance roles as well. To hit Michael's question then about energy investment banking, so this is something I actually briefly looked into, and I had Bank of America on there because one of my board members was there in their energy utilities group. That's going to be both clubs for that. GFA runs an excellent, incredibly well-structured investment banking recruiting. But as part of that, if you're looking to get to a specific group, you're going to be networking, you're going to be meeting with both alums and current employees in that group. And you're going to be able to, need to be able to talk about what you find interesting about that industry. And that's where we come in, right? So GFA will get you the sort of hard technicals as well as the specifics of how to network and that sort of thing, and then we'll be able to teach you about some of the cool things that are happening in energy, and that kind of ties back into where's the industry going. You'll be able to talk then about where are there going to be big renewable energy deals in the future, what are some interesting things happening in the mergers and acquisition space and that sort of thing. So a lot of the clubs do have sort of natural synergies, not just GFA and ECTC, but a lot of them, kind of fit in together. It's definitely not an either or. It's very, very much a both and. I mean, I talk to most of the people on this call pretty frequently about collaborations and that sort of thing.
Excellent, thank you, Eric. So I want to get to a couple of questions that had to deal with folks interested in product management. And so if you're someone that is interested in product management, are marketing and the tech clubs involved together on that? How have you seen students at Tepper navigate that path? And so Corey, would you mind to take a first go at this question?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say, I'm going to say a short answer first and a little bit more detail. If you are someone who's interested in joining the tech industry in a product management function, I absolutely recommend joining both the BNT and the marketing club. And the reason for that is because they're two clubs that are both fantastic, but they're kind of different in different ways. The BNT is and I'm sure Chip can add some color to this as well. The BNT is an industry club, so it's all about tech. So it's tech. There's a lot of people interested in product management. In fact, I would say a very large portion of BNT is interested in product management. But there's also other roles in tech too, like finance and operations and sales, etc. But so BNT is a tech club, whereas marketing is a functional club that spans tech. And a lot of people in marketing club are interested in tech. You see there's a lot of overlap. But there's also people in marketing club that are interested in doing roles in CPG or finance, etc. So product management is essentially somebody who's it's like the master of marketing, somebody who's trying to find what customers want to buy, creating products that they will want to buy, finding out what price point they're willing to pay at, and helping them figure out that this product exists and make them want it. So that's what a product manager does, and that's what marketing is. But for specifically someone who's interested in product management and tech, absolutely, I would say join both clubs, because you're gonna get that product management depth in both of these clubs because that's such a huge overlap. But you can get more of the marketing angle in the marketing club, and you're gonna get more of the tech industry flavor in the B&T. So, and I'm sure Chip can maybe add a little bit more to that.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful way to describe it. And I'll also echo the sentiment that every company works a little bit differently for what they mean by product management or product marketing manager. And I think it's going to, definitely span that gap where there's a lot of overlap between a marketing function and the kind of more product management, much more strategy, internal engineering focused. And so, if you're, in a marketing role, you're going to be working very closely with product managers all day long, and vice versa. If you're a product manager, you're going to have to really interface with all of the marketing folks very tightly. So you have to understand they're part of the business. So they're both, wonderful complementary clubs that offer a lot of overlapping but very complementary skills.
Terrific. So again, switching gears a little bit, just to wrap up with some of the final questions that are here, shifting gears, kind of zooming back out, thinking about a typical day. And I'm not quite sure if there is a typical day, but I would think that there's a pattern or a cadence to your life somewhat. And I wonder, Michael, could we ask you to respond to that first? And then maybe Chris, if you would follow him.
Sure, yeah, I definitely agree with Kelly. There really is no typical day. Almost think about it on a weekly schedule. We have classes Monday through Thursdays. And so you're either on a Monday, Wednesday class or a Tuesday, Thursday class. I think there's kind of a general blend of balancing between the academics in terms of your classes, and then a blend of the club stuff and even a little social on the side. In terms of the academic side, you go to your classes, whether that's your bigger section or your smaller, or the bigger lecture or the smaller section. You may be doing like a group project, maybe meet up with your group, you may work on or have a meeting with them. And maybe do a little bit of homework in the quad, since now we're in person in the building again. But again, that does change, depending on, what your schedule is in terms of your classes, especially as you get into your second year, you kind of start taking a little bit more of those electives. And so kind of depends on what type of classes specific you're in and how much, specific work that comes out of it. In terms of the club side of things, there's, as you can see, even just from this call, there's a whole gauntlet of different type of clubs, everything from the professional side of clubs to more of the educational side, or even just the affinity side. And there's always club events like every day. I think some people have mentioned before me, kind of being able to pick and choose. You're gonna have to make choices. When you're in your MBA, Google Calendar would be your best friend. You won't be able to do everything. So, picking and choosing what club events you want to go to, what sounds just interesting to you, and kind of making sure you don't spread yourself too thin, and you're really getting, things out of the events that you do go to. So yeah, it definitely is a blend between the academic side, the club side. There are a lot of social events too, whether that's, through the club specifically, as the more social or informal events, or just, organically through the program as well during the evening times.
Thanks. And Chris, would you mind to give your thoughts on this?
Sure. Michael is a highly functional individual. I'm probably less so on that area. So he probably does a lot better time in terms of balancing and everything else. I spend a lot of time studying. I'm going to be perfectly honest, to try and get through the classes. It's a challenging curriculum at Tepper. It definitely helps you out a lot. The other focus area of my time, and this is something I had to do when I started in my first year, continued to do in my internship, and I'm continuing to do now, is finding people to reach out to in the industry and setting up time to meet with them one-on-one. I set myself on a cadence while I was at Disney trying to do this. I sent out hundreds of emails in my first day to people I didn't know, cold contacts. I heard back from maybe a third to half of them. And basically every other day I was meeting with people who no reason to speak to me, no reason to talk to me other than I had reached out to them and been proactive about it. And I would say that no matter what you're doing as far as your MBA career, this is an important part of it. Reaching out to people who are working in the industry, trying to build that quality of connection, and then being able to, as best you can, leverage that later on towards getting that job you absolutely want, getting that referral that'll get you that interview is extremely important. So what I would say is there's a lot of stuff that's part of the formal curriculum of the MBA that you need to execute on in order, obviously, to get the value out of it. But then after that, there's a lot of stuff in terms of that will stay with you for the rest of your life in terms of understanding how to build meaningful connections and be able to just understand how it builds into the objective of what you want to be able to accomplish. So that's what I would say about that. It's a lot of time doing that.
Great, thank you so much. So I want to ask you all if you'll step back in time to when you were in the shoes of the people that have joined us this evening for the event. And so round one has passed. Some of them may have applied in round one already. Others may be looking forward to round two. And I wonder, your advice, I wonder if you'd offer a piece of advice to them. It can be about anything. It doesn't have to specifically be about kind of the club perspective, but it can certainly tie into professional clubs and careers if you'd like. But I always think it's just really helpful for them to hear from you all, since you're the ones that are in the process of going through this experience. And so Eric, would you mind to start us off?
Yeah, definitely. I would say, and this is generally to anything where you might have any sort of interest, reach out to current students and get to know them. At Tepper, obviously, it's sort of at any program too, to get an idea of, what's the program like? Who are these people that I'm going to be interacting with? What kind of opportunities is this going to align well? So coming to Tepper, I talked to a fair number of people in the Vets Club just coming in, because that was kind of the natural affinity reach out kind of thing. But by all means, do not hesitate to reach out to any of the professional clubs too, especially if there isn't sort of a natural affinity type thing there. I talk to prospective students all the time, and it's a great way to get an idea, a better idea of the school than you can just get through the website. I mean, the admissions website's great, but it's definitely not a substitute for talking to real live students.
Excellent. Michael, would you mind to go next? We'll go Michael and then Chip, Chris, and Corey. If you guys just want to go in that order, that'd be great. What advice do you have?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think this is advice that I give to a lot of people who are applying, as well as even people who are now in a program. Through the process of admissions and when you're in a natural program, I think you're just going to be surrounded by a lot of people who are just extremely passionate in a lot of different things. And one thing that I would caution and just kind of err to think about, it's really great. You should definitely explore and talk to those people and make sure you're really seeing what their perspectives are, seeing what's available out there, especially coming into an MBA program. One of the most helpful thing for me was just in visualizing what does a next step look like in that direction. But being surrounded by just so many people who are all just super passionate, super excited about a lot of things, it's really easy to get kind of wrapped up and pushed along in that direction, kind of almost like a current. To what other people are really passionate and excited about. So, I would always recommend, take a step back here and there just to reassess and make sure, am I actually really excited about doing this and putting this, foot forward, or am I kind of getting caught up in what other people are in terms of what people are passionate or excited about, or, just make sure you kind of take a step back and making sure you're not making emotional choices and you're making smart decisions.
Yeah, I think building off of that, I think my biggest piece of advice that I give to first years, incoming students, second years, people who've already graduated, anybody, is to figure out what's important to you. Like, it's this wonderful time in your life where you're going to take, 2 years out of the workforce and really focus on yourself and your own personal development. What do you enjoy? Where do you want to be? And I mean that not only in what school do you want to be at, what internship do you want, what job do you want to get? I mean, in 40 years, where do you want to be? Do you want to be, the top CEO of a Fortune 100 company? Like, wonderful. And if you can decide that today, you can figure out what steps you need to take to get there. If you say, you know what's really important to me is being at home with my family at 5 every day, that's great. And it's going to determine the choices you make going forward. So really zoom out big picture and think, what do you want to do? How do you want to spend, your limited time on this earth? And how are you going to leverage your career path and the skills that you've gained in an MBA program to really kind of achieve those goals? So I think that, being true to yourself and not getting swept away, like Michael said, by everybody else's ambitions and wants and needs, and really figuring out what you want to do and being, and having some confidence that you're your own person.
I think a lot of people have talked about what you need to figure out for yourself, and that's extremely important. What I would also do is make sure you have a roadmap going into your MBA in terms of what you want to do. And I'd say this is different from some sort of strictly linear plan that you're following every day, but have some broad-based objectives in mind of what you want to be able to accomplish. And if it turns out your priorities change, that's cool. That's okay. But you'll end up being a lot more prepared for your first few weeks if you have that in place. And then you can adjust along the way. It's cool. Like, maybe you thought you wanted to come in for consulting and, after a few weeks, you realize it's not something that you want to pursue. There's lots of things that are out there. And if you keep all those different things in mind and keep an open mind, you'll be able to find something meaningful based on what is special about you. So that's what I would say for that.
And I'm gonna wrap up and say a lot of the similar. I'm gonna kind of compile a lot of what my colleagues have said here is, even if you don't, I think Chip's point is, if you have that long-term goal and work backwards from there, that's great. But even if you don't know what your long-term goal is and you just kind of have a short-term idea of where you want to go, embrace that uncertainty, go forward with it. But three things I would say is one, like Eric said, talk to current students, see if it's a culture you can really see yourself in, with people who you feel are friendly, similar-minded, and maybe also have different perspectives than you that would just be very interesting to engage with. Like I know I do with all my classmates. Two, I said it before, is I would encourage you to challenge yourself, whether that means from a social perspective or from a workload perspective or a time management perspective or just an academic rigor perspective. Find something that you really think will challenge yourself, and don't be afraid of it. And this is a great opportunity for you to really challenge yourself and grow a lot these 2 years. And then the last piece, this is also something that's been said, is just keep an open mind about everything. If this is something if there are certain directions in your life that you feel are generally the direction you want to go, but you're not sure exactly how you want to get there, keep an open mind, talk to other people, figure out how they figure out their journey. But it's just such an exciting time. And I think I really envy you guys in the position you're in, because it's a lot of fun coming into a new experience where you're just going to grow tremendously over 2 years. So find a culture that works for you, challenge yourself, and just keep an open mind about the whole process. But I think you'll find the right path.
Excellent advice from all of you. Thank you so much for spending your time, gentlemen, with us this evening. This is an event that the admissions team relies upon our students to partner with us on, and every time you deliver. And it's information that is so valuable to prospective students. And I'd like to thank our prospective students for attending this evening. I know that you are busy as well, and we appreciate the interest that you have in the Tepper School. Just to remind you, October 13th and October 21st are the next 2 installments of Tepper Talks. We hope to see you there. And if you have any questions that you weren't able to get answered this evening, feel free to email us at mba-admissions@andrew.cmu.edu. Again, it's just MBA-admissions. We're happy to continue the conversation and look forward to working with you over the coming months as you finalize your plans for your MBA. So thanks, everybody. Hope you have a great rest of your evening or morning, depending on where you're logging in from. So appreciate the time that you spent here this evening. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.